Ready? All right. On today's episode, I welcome on a special guest. He is a three-time Coach of the Year and head boys basketball coach at Mount St. Charles High School. Coach Henry Coleman. Coach, how are you today?
Very good. Yourself?
I'm doing well. I'm doing really well. Can't complain. How are you holding up during these times? I always ask everyone this. It's always a strange time for everyone, so I gotta know what everyone's up to.
Obviously, it's a unique situation that we're in. It has been challenging at different points, but I think there's been a lot of positives, at least for myself, that have come from it. It's during this extra free time that I've had. Obviously, it's been nice spending it with my family. Too many times we're on the go and everything else. But it's allowed me to become a better coach. There have been a lot of virtual clinics, Zoom sessions. So it's really helped in that regard, especially with like whether it's NBA, college coaches, just putting them out for free, which is pretty cool on their part for doing that. Also, you got to get creative. Depending on, obviously, times change. You got to change your style. You got to, as far as try and figure out ways to continue to move forward. And that's one thing I've done with my programs that I coach. Obviously, we're limited to the amount of time that we can do workouts. So whether we have to put something on Zoom or send out an email with a template for the workout for maybe a week, a month, but just trying to keep the kids motivated and just them looking at the big picture, understanding as far as at some point we are going to get back on the field or get back out onto the court. And there's a great opportunity for themselves to separate themselves from whether it's their peers or obviously their future competition. And the thing is, too, once we get back onto the court, on the field, you're going to see who's been putting in the work and who hasn't.
That's very true. I mean, it's a tough situation with everything that's going on right now. And yeah, you make a good point because you're gonna be able to tell who the kids have been working out and getting out there and playing basketball and trying to just get into shape. I know it was a tough situation in the beginning of the 3 months, but things started to lighten up in the summer. So we'll see, for everything that's going on. Have you heard anything about possibly basketball starting anytime soon? Or
It's funny you say that. I actually had reached out today to Mike Lunny, the executive director of the Interscholastic League. Mm-hmm. I'm actually the president of the Basketball Coaches Association for Rhode Island for the boys side. And I just sent a quick email. I was just curious to see if anything has been starting to put into the works, what they're thinking for a format for the upcoming season. He did reply back. Basically, he wasn't too specific, and I totally get that just for the fact right now so much can change between now and then. But he's hopeful with hopefully things going in the right direction, them in contact with the Rhode Island Department of Health, that hopefully it'll be as far as a low risk or moderate sports category this winter, and we can make something happen for the kids. So we're hopeful. We're hopeful at this point, but like I said, unfortunately, things can change in a matter of a split second with everything that we're dealing with.
Yeah, it's really a tough situation, and it's a tough thing that makes it tough is because no one knows. Like, no one knows what's gonna happen or the cure, and it's too bad we can do a bubble life or something like that. At the same time,
that'd be great.
Yeah, you think about that, and you're like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, but yeah, it's a tough situation at hand, and what adversity faces what we face going forward.
One thing, I'm pretty optimistic, though, in all honesty, for the fact I also coach AAU basketball. And this past summer, we were able to have a shortened season. We had no cases between I think we had about 17 different teams practicing at the same facility throughout the week. We also went to 4 different tournaments up in New Hampshire where we went up against different states, and we didn't have one case. So hopefully, as far as this could maybe be a sign of the things as far as that we need to do, that hopefully we can see some type of winter season for the kids.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, that's amazing that you guys are able to make that happen and able to play the AAU and still keep playing. Didn't you guys just have a tournament recently? I think I just saw you post that.
Actually, we just started up again. We just started up the fall season, and this past weekend was our first tournament. Once again, with the restrictions, we're limited to playing up in New Hampshire. But there's actually a possibility we might be playing in Rhode Island this weekend just because things have changed a little bit. So we're hopeful in that regard. But in the meantime, if we have to travel a little bit extra, we'll do it just so the kids can get some type of experience.
Oh, wow. That'd be awesome. That's so cool. That's really, really cool. Yeah. So I want to just take a step back too now because I want to, and then we'll go back to present time and everything. But I want to ask, Coach, like, how did you get into basketball?
I've always loved the game. I played a little bit in high school. I was nothing special. The funny thing is I had never really thought about coaching. And then my brother-in-law, he had been doing coaching for a number of years. And he was at the high school level, and he had just taken over a high school program. And he had reached out to me. He's like, would you have any interest in maybe doing some coaching? And if anything, we started out small. He's like, if you could do some scouting for me on the side, that would be great. And then he said, you're more than welcome to come to the practices just to feel it out, see how it is, see if this is something you might be interested in going forward. And I caught on right away. I loved it. It was great being back in the gym. It was something that I didn't realize how much I missed. Obviously, I was a little wet behind the ears. There was a lot to learn. So I was pretty quiet that first year for the most part, just volunteering. I didn't want to step on any toes. But the head coach at the same time, he was always welcoming any new input. And from there, I volunteered for 3 years. And then after those 3 years, the junior varsity coach at the particular school that I was at Feinstein High School, the varsity coach, David Tedeschi, asked me if I would like to take over in that position, which I did for the next 3 years. And it worked out really well. And in between, while I was volunteering, I actually did some coaching of CYO basketball in my town. To just get more experience myself and also kind of running my own program. So at some point, I had the aspirations of becoming a head coach. I could get that little experience on the side along with being an assistant coach at the same time.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. And what's it like, like you mentioned running your own program, kind of getting that experience. Like, how do you get that? Like, what's your philosophy on the running your own program, and how do you develop that going forward?
One of the biggest things when I took over at Mount St. Charles was just the culture. You want to try and change the culture to what your philosophy is. My biggest thing is practice is very important. We want to practice, obviously, the way that we're going to be playing in games. We want to have game intensity throughout the drills. We want it to be competitive. We want the players to be pushing themselves along with each other to hopefully get to that next level. Just continue as far as to talk with the kids and just letting them know what's expected. So there's no gray areas. My biggest thing is just playing the game the right way. There's a right way, there's a wrong way. The only time I really get on the kids is when they don't play hard. Because I know, obviously, they're kids. Mistakes are going to happen. It's part of the game. At the same time, you'd like them to learn from their mistakes. But my biggest thing is, one of my favorite quotes is, it takes no talent to hustle. I think anybody can hustle at any point, and you can make things happen from hustling. You're going to go through your struggles, whether it's on offense, not hitting shots, but you can always find a way to help the team through hustling.
Yeah, that's really true. And I think that's amazing that, always play hard and get on your kids for not playing hard. I think that's really important. I think no matter what the score is, I think it's always important for kids just to play hard until the end of the game. You just finish.
And it's funny you say that, no matter what the score is, because my post-game meeting with my kids this past weekend, I was telling them this was my first time coaching this particular group. I said, anytime any of my teams, when somebody walks into the gym, they should never know the score. They shouldn't know if you're up 20, down 20, or it's a tie game, close game, because you should be playing the game the same way throughout.
Yeah, you want someone to walk in and just be able to see it and be like, man, this team's playing really hard. You would never know that they're either up by 20 or down by 20 or, whatever the score is. That's right. I love that philosophy. That's something I've always learned too from Coach Cobley out there as well. He's always taught me that. While you were at Feinstein High School, you won a championship, like the state championship.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be a part of two. We won the Division III championship in a pretty exciting game down at the Ryan Center against Central Falls. And then the following year was a realignment year. And we had a good core coming back. So we figured, you know what? Let's try the next challenge. Let's move up to Division II. And actually, it was amazing as far as the kids put in a lot of work in the off season, and going from one division to another can definitely be, as far as a whole new level of ball game. But I tell you what, the kids really upped their games, and we actually went undefeated. We went undefeated during the regular season in Division II. We had a scare in the opening round in the playoff against North Providence. And then we started, I think it was a wake-up call more than anything. And then in the semifinal game against Wesley, we were starting to hit our stride. And then in all honesty, it was amazing in the championship against Rogers. It was almost a one-half game, just because we built such a lead in that first half. It was almost impossible to overcome, and we pretty much went into cruise control and able to accomplish our next goal with that Division II championship.
Wow, that's awesome. That's so cool that you're able to win at one level and then win at another level. Now I got to ask, so I asked Coach Phil Seddy this as well. Do you have the ring, or did you guys go with the jacket? He told me Coach Downey went with a jacket. He said he wanted the ring.
We went with the jackets.
Oh,
we went with the jackets.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah. And if we had maybe won that third one, we had, as far as we got knocked out in the quarterfinal round that previous year, the following year, actually, against West Warwick, they just made a great run. We probably would have got the rings that third time if that was the case.
Yeah, that's understandable. So that's really cool. And what was you end up leaving, what was your decision to go to Central?
Well, actually, the situation kind of forced my hand. Feinstein actually ended up closing. Basically, so we had 1 year after the Division II championship, and then the numbers ended up getting pretty low at the school, and then the school department basically decided to close the doors. So basically, I was a free agent. And there weren't too many openings at the time, but I was looking around, so I actually ended up over at Central as the junior varsity girls coach.
Oh, wow. And like, what was that experience like coaching for the JV girls, and how did you get into the switch of the boys team?
It was definitely different. I'd never coached girls basketball before. I had coached girls cross country. I've done that a number of years over at Hope High School. So a little bit different style as far as I approached it compared to the boys. But basketball is basketball for the most part. I was actually only the coach there for a month.
Oh, wow.
And the reason behind that was over Christmas break, let's backtrack a little bit. I never actually coached that team that first year.
Oh, wow.
The first year, the head coach actually for the boys went out on leave due to a medical issue. So they actually asked me if I would be interested in being the boys varsity head coach as an interim for that particular season. So it was kind of interesting being a head coach for the first time, getting my feet wet. But the team did a great job accepting me. The assistant coach that was there at the time, it worked out really well. We missed the playoffs by one game, but we were super competitive. We lost to Cranston East, who made it to the Final Four in a double overtime game. We lost to Cranston West by 1 or 2, but we also lost them in overtime later in the year. The biggest thing with that team is, even though we got off to a slow start, the kids didn't quit. They kept battling. And as I mentioned, we ended up missing playoffs by one game, but it was a real rewarding experience, just how it all played out. And then the following year, the head coach actually came back for the boys. And then so I took over in my position as junior varsity coach for the girls. And that was what I was alluding to earlier, only lasted for a month because the head coach, unfortunately, at the end of December, passed away. So with the whole situation that had transpired, the athletic director asked me if I would be interested in taking over the boys again, since I had done it the previous season.
Oh, wow. And what's it like to come into a situation like that where you take over, unfortunately, for, a coach had passed away, so how do you like come into a situation like that and that come over that adversity as well too?
Yeah, I give the kids a lot of credit. It was nice, obviously, from coaching them in the past. It was very emotional, just emotions all over the place. We actually postponed our next game a week just so the kids could just take everything in. Plus, obviously, kind of get back to practice, try to get back to normal as best as possible. One thing with each game, which was a really nice touch, each of the visiting schools that we went to, they did a moment of silence for the coach, was Floyd Narcisse. Mm-hmm. We left the first chair empty, and we had, as far as a cover that we put over the chair for each game with his name, just so coach was still with us. Obviously, it was in spirit. Just as a reminder, so whether it was a timeout, kids could see the chair, just to know as far as he was still part of this program, still a part of the team. Like I said, as far as I thought the kids did an amazing job. The season could have gone in any which way, considering what they were dealt. But they stayed positive. We had a heck of a run in the playoffs. We won our first round game against St. Ray's. We ended up losing in the next round against Cranston West in overtime. But just it was something. It was definitely something as far as that whole year.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can't imagine what you guys went through, but it's also amazing that you brought that cover with coach's name on it and to honor him and left that seat empty for him. And I think that's a real awesome way to honor someone, a coach especially, and to make that run into the playoffs too. It just says what the kids are all about and how much heart they had and what they were willing to do and to work for you. And that's crazy, and that's amazing that you guys were able to make the playoffs. Like you said, it could have went either way. It could have went either way, and you went the right. Well, either way would have been right or wrong, but not right or wrong. Whatever, went the right way either way. So that's amazing that you guys were able to turn that up and go to the playoffs. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, they were a great group and I still stay in touch with a good amount of them. Or they'll, as far as send me a message, I send them a message. Just like you said, you have those connections. And that's one of the most rewarding parts about coaching is just like whether you have a big win or as far as you hear about something that they did, just staying in touch, keeping those relationships alive. When they come to a game when you haven't seen them maybe 10 years and they introduce their kids to you, their wife, family members, like, Coach, it's great to see you again. I've been following the team. That's what makes it all worth it in the end, in all honesty.
Yeah, it really does. It's so cool, the relationships that you build and like how they turn into more of like an extension of family or just like a friendship at the end of everything, and like the memories that you guys have as you've created when you were coaching and everything, coaching them.
And the thing is too, you don't realize the impact sometimes, like something maybe you kind of maybe overlooked or you didn't think anything of it at the time, maybe a small conversation you had off to the side with a particular individual. And then, like you say, they bring up that conversation maybe 5-10 years later, and maybe I didn't think of it or just in passing, but you don't realize sometimes just how powerful your words can be as far as a coach.
Yeah, it's crazy how much you can make an impact on such a young man or a young woman's life with just words that you say and you don't really think about it, and then they just come back to like that, like changed my attitude or something like that.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
It's crazy. How many text messages do you get around like the holidays if you're doing an alumni game for guys to come back?
Well, that's you know what? We actually do the alumni game Thanksgiving weekend.
Okay.
That was one thing I brought back when I went to Mount St. Charles after my first year.
Yeah.
The numbers start out a little bit low, but they've gotten bigger each year, and it's great to see how many of the players that I've coached that have actually come back, because that just shows you like obviously they had some type of positive experience that they want to come back.
Yeah.
So like I said, and honestly myself, Christmas morning, Thanksgiving, I shoot text to all, whether it's current players or former players, Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. The funny thing is, if I haven't done it by, let's say, 10 a.m., I start getting the text messages. They'll start hitting me up and everything.
That's awesome.
It's great. It really is. They ask how the family's doing, and just it's amazing, like these lifelong relationships that you get to build and be a part of.
It's so much fun to be a part of their lives and see those lifelong relationships grow and everything. It's also crazy, like sometimes when you see the kids now and they're like graduating college or they're getting their own families, man, I feel old. Like I just need that.
Yeah, just be a fact. It's like, wait a minute, how old are you now?
Yeah, exactly.
It goes by so fast.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. How did you make the transition to go to coach at Mount St. Charles? What was that decision like?
Well, basically, so when Central ended, I really wanted to get back with the boys. I just had a better feel for them, coaching basketball. So after that second year, I ended up going over to Shea High School as a junior varsity coach. But I always had that goal of wanting to become a head coach, having my own program. So during my time at Shea, and I was up front with the Shea head coach at the time, he knew I was looking to go on to having my own program. So he knew at some point it was going to happen. It was just a matter of when at some point, if everything worked out, that I would be leaving him. And, the funny thing is I probably had about 7 or 8 interviews for different head coaching positions. And for one reason or another, it just didn't work out. Some of the different schools I interviewed with, they contacted me, great job. We just ended up going with somebody else for whatever reason. And then the funny thing is when I went for the Mount St. Charles Academy job, there were a couple other candidates, and I went for the job and did a pretty good job with the interview. And at the end of the interview, they asked me one last question, which was kind of interesting. They're like, you blew us away. we're really impressed as far as the way you present yourself, your resume, all that you stand for. How come you haven't been hired yet? And I said, the funny thing is, I said, you know what? I said, before I said one word, when I walked through that door, what did you notice? They said, you're not that tall. And obviously, typically, when you think of basketball coaches or basketball players, you think of somebody tall.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, maybe some of the people on interview committees, maybe they overlooked it. Maybe they didn't. Who knows? As far as can this relatively smaller gentleman handle a group of players that could be as far as a foot taller than him? Are they going to listen to him? Are they going to respect him? But I said, in all honesty, I said, if you look at my resume, you look at my track record, it kind of speaks for itself. And so I think that kind of was an exclamation point on that interview. And then the funny thing is, too, basically a couple months later, they had actually told me a couple days earlier, they had a Bryant assistant women's coach interview. And they said, that's the person we're going with. But they said, you know what, just out of respect to Henry, we're going to still interview him because we already said we were. And so they kind of already had their candidate picked. But I give them credit, the interview committee, that they just didn't have me go through the motions, nod their head, and then just shove me out the door. They were open-minded. And basically, after my interview, they totally reconsidered, and I was lucky enough for them to have chosen me. So wow. I'm very grateful, very grateful.
Wow, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Like you said, good for them for keeping the doors open and keeping their minds open at least. And then obviously you must have just blew them out of the water with your interview, like they had mentioned. So.
Well, I had been on enough at that point, so I had plenty of practice.
That's great.
You know what? In all honesty, it's worked out for the best. I love Mount. I have great support from the administration, from the athletic director, the parents. The kids have been amazing. So in all honesty, it's worked out for the best. It was meant to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and it seems like it has. Like you guys have had great runs and made playoffs. And and you also have been named Coach of the Year 3 times. What's that honor like to be named that?
It's pretty cool in all honesty because the people that vote on it are actually my coaching peers. We do it at our all division meeting at the end of the season. So for the fact that your peers recognize you in that light, it's very humbling. For the fact that I've been lucky enough to have won it 3 times. But in all honesty, that reward is basically a reflection of the teams that I've coached and the hard work that they've put in. It's the kids that deserve the credit, if anything. So it's just, like I said, I've been lucky enough and just to have kids that have bought into what I'm bringing to the table with the team. I've had some great assistant coaches. And the pretty cool thing with my assistant coaches that I've had at Mount St. Charles were actually my former players, which is cool too, for the fact it's kind of come full circle. So they've been through the program. They understand as far as what's the expectation, the culture. So it's worked out really well. And like I said, you're only as good as your assistants, and I've been lucky enough to have some really good assistants over the years.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, it really is. I like that you credit your teammate, your team, and your assistants as well too. I think it takes a whole team to come together to make a great season happen.
Absolutely, definitely.
That's really cool. And oh man, where am I right now? Sorry about that.
It's okay. And like the funny thing is too, being over at Mount St. Charles, like they ask, oh, where do you coach? I say Mount St. Charles. And the funny thing is, the first thing a lot of people associate Mount St. Charles with the hockey program. Yeah, and rightfully so. It's been a phenomenal run over the years. But at the same time, we're just trying to change that whole persona. There are other pretty elite sports teams there at Mount, athletic programs. Like I was lucky enough to coach 2 years ago on the Division II state championship baseball team. The tennis program has been phenomenal over the years. And I'm just trying to get the basketball program to that level where people understand, like, you know what, it's not just a hockey school. There's a lot of other quality athletic programs.
That's awesome. That's so cool to be able to bring that. Yeah, I think a lot of people bring that up too. They're like, I think once I started, it's like, oh, you should get like Mount St. Charles like hockey on because they're like such a big name thing. And I was like, well, I got the coach coming, like the basketball coach coming on, so take that.
Who's the coach?
Yeah. They're like, what? the basketball? No, that's awesome. I mean, it's great that you're able to take over the program and make Mount St. Charles on the map. Like, and I mentioned what your philosophy was, and has your philosophy changed over the years since you've been taking over coaching jobs?
For the most part, it's stayed the same, but I've changed. Like, obviously, you're going to be flexible. You're going to change with the times. Kids change. Um, like I said, like you just got to kind of get with the times. Like I said, you might have to change a few things here and there. Because, like I said, unfortunately, you can't just stay with your style all the way through. It's probably just not going to work. So I've evolved as a coach. Some things that I've done now, I probably wouldn't have done in the past, or vice versa. And like I said, as far as just, it's always evolving. That's why, like, I'm always trying to listen to other coaches, ask questions to try to better myself, hopefully better the team, the program. So, like I said, and the thing is, too, 10 years from now, I'll probably say things that, you know what, 10 years from the past, just I wouldn't have done. So it's just always evolving, basically.
Yeah, you gotta evolve with the game, evolve with the players as well too, and that's the most important thing. That's amazing, and you're able to do that. And hopefully, there is a season coming up, and hopefully, good things will come up for you guys. I definitely will have to come and catch a game, obviously.
You're more than welcome. That'd be great if you could. Hopefully, we'll have fans in the facilities.
Yeah, I'll sneak in. I'll say I'm media or something like that.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
So I also want to ask too, because you are a big historian on sports and you run a YouTube basketball channel for Rhode Island High School sports. What's that like? How'd you get into that?
I've always been somebody like I want to preserve history. I want to bring it to light. So current generations, future generations can see what the past was, and as far as just to see how it all started, and just like I just don't want it to go by the wayside. There are a lot of great coaches, great players over the years, and just too many times, like whether it's just a name or you're not too sure how a team did way back when, you might be correct, you might not be correct, but I just want to have something out there. With like the basketball, the YouTube channel for Basketball Coach Association, like you see these names who made all state way back when, but now you can actually get a visual of how good that particular individual, that team was. So it's pretty cool in that regard. Like I've received a lot of messages, private messages, where people have reached out to me, you know what, I haven't seen this game in 20 years. I was able to sit down with my family and show my kids this game. They never got to see me play. So it's been really cool in that aspect. Like the website itself, the website that I've done, like I've done one for the Coaches Association, which has all state, all division, all the playoff results. There's quite a bit of the standings over the years, team results. But then I started to do other sports. I got involved with this individual, Tommy D'Angelo, who started a website, rihssports.com, where he was doing all sports. I did some basketball, I did some baseball, and then he was actually going to end the website. He had done it for about 20 years. He did from 2000 to 2020. And he's like, you know what? I'm just tired. It's kind of run its course. So some of the newspaper guys were kind of like curious, like, oh, this is a big resource. Hopefully it doesn't get shut down. So probably about a month after he made the announcement, I reached out to him. And we had talked previously. I said, has anybody reached out about taking over the website? And he said, no, nobody has. I said, I would love to, as far as take it over, if you're willing to show me how it works and how to upload and everything else. So we actually sat down, we got together, and he still helps out a little bit. But so now basically I'm taking everything for history from 2000 all the way to the 1930s when the high school sports started. And I'm doing every sport now.
Wow.
So it's been quite the project. But you know what? It's pretty cool. Like just to see different names, different records over the years, and just the same thing. You get the similar feedback from people just like the YouTube channel, like, oh, wow, I totally forgot about that result. Or, you know what, I wasn't too sure what our record was my senior year, but it's up on the website. Thanks for doing that. So it's cool. It's really cool. It's a lot of work. And the funny thing is, being at the library so often, I'm on like a first name basis with some of the librarians.
They're like, hey, coach, how are you?
They're like, oh, you're back. They're like, what years are you researching now?
Yeah.
What sport you researching now? But it's a lot of fun, and just like, it's funny. Like, God bless my wife. God bless my family. They're very understanding. They know as far as how much I love doing this. And like, I end up finding more projects. I come up with different ideas, more work for myself. That's one thing during this whole COVID situation.
Yeah.
Like, I know some of my friends are like, oh my gosh, I'm bored out of my mind. I'm like, I'm moving on to the next thing. Like, I got something going on. It's keeping me busy. So
That's that's just amazing that you're able to like put all that information together and like keep up with it and not like stop. I don't know. Like on top of what you have, the jobs and the coaching. I know you coach all year round. You mentioned that
yep.
out there too as well. It's like, man, I don't know how you keep up with all that stuff. It's crazy. That I mean, it's good. It keeps yourself busy, right?
Oh yeah. Like, my feeling is sleep is overrated. You know what? You're gonna sleep for the rest of your life at some point. You know what? You might as well take advantage of the time that you have now. So I don't sleep too much. That's for sure.
But yeah, I can imagine that's amazing. Is there like a specific year or anything that really was interesting that you had researched or for any sport?
Um, Kind of almost like the winning streaks over the years. I didn't realize, like, for certain sports, for example, like the Pontiac girls basketball team, they won, I think, like 100 something, like maybe 115 straight league games at one point
Oh my God.
in the 90s. They were a powerhouse. I never realized that because I didn't really follow girls' sports with the basketball or anything. So that was pretty interesting to see. I think the Mount girls tennis team won like 70 matches in a row at one point.
God, that's great.
The hockey team, I think, won 98 games straight at one point. So it's pretty cool seeing those records that you just weren't aware of. And then the other cool thing is, too, is seeing some of the pro athletes that have come through Rhode Island over the years. Like, obviously, you have some of the recent ones like Rocco Baldelli, Ricky Lito. But then also you go back and you forget about like Davey Lopes, who played for the Dodgers, had a Major League Baseball career. So it's pretty cool. Just like you forget about certain names and they pop up. And just even like looking through the old newspapers, like today, man landed on the moon. It's like, oh my gosh, that's right. It's 1969. I forgot what year I'm looking at. Or Babe Ruth hit 3 home runs for the Yankees. It's like, oh yeah, I'm looking at the 1930s right now.
Oh my God.
It kind of puts it like, makes it a little bit more real from just like seeing on TV or a highlight or whatever. It's like, oh, this is the actual newspaper. This is the actual year. So it's pretty cool coming across different tidbits like that.
That's so cool. That's gotta be that's so cool to like experience that and research that. And I didn't know about the RI sports thing until I started doing some research on him before he came on the show. And I knew about the basketball and like how big of a basketball historian, but I didn't know about the other sport of it. So, oh man, you're a busy man. You're a busy man. But
it's funny because like I've had actually other coaches associations reach out to me to see, like, they had seen the basketball website for what we had put together with the history and everything. Last summer, the Wrestling Coaches Association reached out to me. I did something similar to what we did for basketball. Baseball, I did a website as well with all the high school information. Boys soccer had reached out to me. I did all state, all division over the years. And then the other cool thing is, too, like, I've had Hall of Fames reach out to me to see about doing some research on the side. Johnston, Central Falls, Mount St. Charles. So it's pretty cool.
that's so cool. That's like, I like it that you preserve all Rhode Island history, sports. I think that's like the coolest thing. It's to like able to do that and like kind of bring up all the old memories and stuff. Like you had mentioned, like people sit down and watch games that they didn't even know. Like my kids never even saw me play, or like games that I probably watched with my cousins if they played in high school that I didn't even get a chance to see them play. So that's just absolutely amazing that you're able to put something together like that. And like I mentioned off here, hopefully I can get some stuff from my dad, maybe know somebody.
Yeah, definitely. Always looking for those, like, and the nice thing is, too, like, anybody that gives me, whether it's a VHS or they give me 8mm, 16mm, I transfer it all to DVD for everybody. After they give me the copy, I'll give it back to them in the original form, but then I'll also give them a DVD. I don't charge anybody. I just appreciate anybody that can share any type of game film with me. And like I said, just because certain games, people like, I don't think you want to watch that one. But you might not want to watch it, but maybe somebody from the other team, maybe that was their first varsity points. You never know, as far as it might have meaning for somebody. So I'm like, you know what, whatever you have, I'll gladly take. And then obviously I'll give it back to you in a nice DVD afterwards.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's really true as well too. I didn't really think about it. Could have been, that's another meaningful game for someone else. It could have been a blowout, but someone could have had, their best game. They could have 30 their career high against that team, or
True.
came off the bench and scored their first points and set the rest of the career up. But that's absolutely amazing, Coach, that you're able to put this all together and make this happen for all around sports. And that's awesome that you're working with other associations to do that too. And that's so cool. I think that was like one of the, besides all your accolades and coaching and stuff like that's like a cool side thing and a hobby that you're doing and making it happen and preserve the history of Rhode Island.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Coach, I got one last question before we wrap it up. NBA talk. What do you think about the NBA finals? I know that our Celtics didn't get in. It's a tough one, but what do you think about the finals?
I think it should be a pretty good matchup. I could see it going 6 or 7 games. I don't know. In all honesty, I'm probably leaning a little bit towards Miami at this point. But I think it's going to be some real good games, some real close games. And it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, I would have liked to have seen the Celtics. I'm a Celtics fan. But I think the Miami Heat, they're very worthy of where they ended up in the finals. They were the better team. So I'm looking forward to it Wednesday night.
Yeah, it should be a good one. It's going to be interesting what's going to happen. I mean, sucks that the Celtics aren't in, but Miami, they're having a great run in the playoffs, and they got hot at the right time and playing really good defense.
Yeah, no, that's the key. You just said it right there. As far as get hot at the right time, and obviously playoffs, it can't get any better at this point. So,
yeah,
but
right.
Lakers are playing well. Lakers have been 4-1, 4-1, 4-1. So you know what? It's going to be interesting to see as far as how the two of them go at it.
Yeah, it should be an interesting matchup. But Coach, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on the show. This has been
You're
great.
welcome.
I got to get you on before the season starts. Do a little season outlook too with everything. Definitely would love, and then definitely make my way up to a game for sure if the fans are allowed in.
Definitely, absolutely. Thank you again for having me.
Of course, Coach. Thank you for your time, and to talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too.